The third Doctor was, of course, grounded as a result of his earlier adventures, and when he was captured by the Time Lords, this was his sentence. But on occasion, the Time Lords had work for him to do. So our story opens as it actually opens on the planet Peladon, where we see a murder take place. And then the Doctor and Joe arrive in the TARDIS. Well, how can that be? Well, the Doctor claims he's fixed it, and he's taking it out on a test run, and all this stuff. Well, of course, he has not fixed the TARDIS. And by the end of the episode, of course, he figures out the obvious. The Time Lords manipulated the Doctor into going to this planet to deal with a bit of concern here. And it is in the distant future and all that. But it also speaks to, you could really figure out that the Time Lords, and maybe not all of them, but some, manipulated the Doctor all along. Because the Doctor just seems to show up, at these places, and he's like, hey, let's look around, see what's what. And then, of course, there's always something wrong, and there's an adventure and stuff. And so you could kind of throw it in there that, well, maybe not all of them, but some, Of course, it's not a good show if it's just them hanging out, and going to alien restaurants or what have you. That stuff happens in between the episode. So anyway, it's just a thought. But this was, a whodunit in a dark castle on an alien planet, and done on the cheap, of course. But they always had a lack of money, and yet they would find ways to make it work. And for the purpose and the premise of this whodunit type deal, and everyone's a suspect in the murder, and this political intrigue in which the Galactic Federation and their ambassadors has arrived to discuss and negotiate the terms of which Peladon will join this Galactic Federation. Well, the guy who's murdered is all for it, but the guy who was against it, well, doesn't he become? But no one guesses except, of course, the audience. And then they show you that he's plotting all of this, that he had the other guy killed, and he's against the joining this, and he feels it's in for the better interest of the young king here that rules Peladon, and he fears the foreign influence, if you will, on their culture and religion and whatnot, which apparently surrounds the belief in the ghost of this animal. So there's a lot of manipulation here and making use of that. Turns out there really is an animal, but it's just an animal, and ends up killing the bad guy. So how does that work out, huh? Well, we see more evidence, probably more from the Master, but of a Time Lord's ability of hypnosis and perhaps a little bit of telepathy here. We know that the Time Lords can contact each other, well, either their other selves. We've seen the Doctor do that with his other selves. I'm not sure about but there is that suggestion in quite a few episodes that they recognize each other even when they've regenerated. So anyway, the Doctor, he sort of tames the creature to his advantage through this. But anyway, the overall thing was that this is a simple plot, really, and with a simple set, and it works out for it, and it shows that money doesn't necessarily solve everything. Some of the weak spots, I think it would have, if only they could have done it. Today you could CGI it, really, but at the time, there's no establishing shots of the people of Peladon, like in the street or something like that. All you see is the toy model. The toy model is actually huge in the set, but it looks like a toy in the what can you do? And there's no establishing shot of that. You hear them at the end when the big celebration of the deal being struck and all that, but you don't see them. And so that's a problem. The Alpha Centauri character, who looks like a creature that walked off the set of Sesame Street or something. But what are you going to do? Who's to say what an alien creature might look like? So it's just this giant eye with some bug arms coming out of its I don't know, cloak or what have you. But whatever, the point is made. they're the ambassadors, and of course the Doctor immediately is, his biases is on display, and it misleads him into suggesting who the villain is here, and he thinks it's the Ice Warriors who show up. This is a future version of the Ice Warriors, who are the ambassadors of Mars, and they've come to participate in this. And you think they're up to no good, and well, no. It wasn't them. It was some other guy, a little head inside a box, who fakes his own attack, and turns out he was in cahoots with the traitor, really, of Peladon. Meanwhile, the king is young, and he has the hots for Joe, and they flirt and all this stuff, and Joe gets upset with him when he doesn't save the Doctor, when the Doctor has to do a trial by combat and all this sort of stuff and all that. But in the end, boy, she almost takes him up on the offer, and says, we better leave. And the Doctor's like, well, do you want to stay, she could have been Princess Joe after all. They take on the identities of being ambassadors. Of course, they're not, and of course, all while you're waiting for the real ambassadors to show up. And they do, but at the very tail end of it, and then they realize, hey, wait a minute, these guys were imposters, and then they hop in the TARDIS and take off. So, there you go. So it's a tight, well crafted and very the simplistic plot, and it works out for what it is. I mean, of course, you can laugh at the effects and all that sort of thing, but when you're drawn in by the power and the charisma of the characters, and most notably Pertwee himself, it doesn't matter, and it's an enjoyable one. Is it one of the best? No. I wish I had more of the others. I've seen the previous season episodes, but I don't have them in my collection, where it's some very significant episodes concerning the Doctor's battles with the Master and so forth, and that is unfortunate for my purposes here. But anyway, here we have Doctor Who and the Curse of Peladon, and there will be a sequel to this one. The Doctor will return, and yes, I do have that one, thank goodness. But jumping through the Pertwee episodes, unfortunately I don't have them all. Up next will be The Three Doctors, which establishes quite a bit more about the lore of the Time Lords and Gallifrey and all of that, and a little bit more evidence of just who the Doctor really is. Alright, thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my mini stores, these for you.